Hey everyone, welcome to Exercise Check. This is the start of the series where we're going to be going over each exercise in our Java reading. Full disclaimer, I'm going to be keeping most of my mistakes in these movies, so you might be seeing me stumble through some parts. Additionally, don't forget in coding, there are a million ways to solve one problem. So the way I'm going to approach this exercise might not be exactly how you will, so just keep that in mind as we go forward. The exercise we're going to be going over today is data types, which is in chapter 2 of our reading. So let's hop on into this. Pulling up our reading, we see 2.4 exercises data type. First one on the instructions, it says we need to work on these exercises in IntelliJ for the Java Web Dev Exercises project. So what this is telling me is that I need to go to our GitHub and grab the Java Web Dev Exercises project from GitHub and bring it onto my own machine. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to the GitHub account of LaunchCode Education and then find that project. We have a lot of repositories in this GitHub, so I'm going to paste in this and search for it. And here it is. Awesome. When we're in here, what we need to do when we want to copy over code, we want to make sure we fork it first. So we need to press the fork button. I'm going to fork it over to my own account. And once it's done, it should appear in your own account. So the next thing after we fork it, we need to clone it. So we grab the link after clicking that code button, and we're going to open up a new bash terminal. Make sure that you cd into the directory where you want to save this project, which on my machine is lcgits. In order to copy this project onto your machine, we use that clone on git. So we say git clone, and then we paste that link. Go ahead and press enter, and there we go. If we type in the command ls, we now see that Java Web Dev Web Exercises is inside of this directory. So I'm going to cd into that and make sure everything is there. Great, let's go ahead and open this in IntelliJ. All right, I open IntelliJ. I need to open an existing project, so I click open. I need to go find that project, which I said was in lcgits. It was Java Web Dev Exercises. So I single click Java Web Dev Exercises and make sure that's highlighted, and I press open because I want the entire project to open in IntelliJ. And there we go, our project is open. We go into our project, we go into our source folder, and we're seeing all the files to our project. Cool, so let's go on to the next step. Looks like it wants us to create a new package to store these exercises that we're going to do in here. So we need to create a new package, which it tells us here. Click on the source folder and then right click and then select new and then package. But we still need to know what we're going to name it when we create it. So I'm going to scroll down here and it says name the package exercises. So let's go do that. It says right click on source. So I right click, new, and then package. It says call it exercises, lowercase, and press enter. And our exercises has been created. The next thing it says to do is right click or control click on that exercises folder and create a new Java class. Again, we need to know what we need to name the new Java class. So what does it want us to name it? Looks like Alice. So let's name it Alice. Right click on exercises, new Java class, and Alice. This box right here is asking, do I want to add this to Get later? I want to see it later because I'm creating new code. So I'm going to press add. And also I'm going to say, remember and don't ask me again. Moving on. We name the class. We click yes. And now it looks like we can write code within it. Cool. Don't forget to write your main method. Okay, let's go ahead and write that main method real quick so we don't forget. How we create a main method is we say public, then static, and then void. The word main, which it has to be named to main. And then inside of here is always a parameter args. So we say string, open, close, square bracket, and then say args. This is that very important starting point that Java needs to begin our application at. So it's very important that we remember to always add a main method within our Java application. Otherwise, it can't start. In this class, we can also create new class variables. So class variables are always private. So we're going to say private string my first class variable. We know strings have to be wrapped in double quotes. So we can say double quotes, this is a string. And we always have to put our semicolon at the end. Then we can build our constructor. Constructors are typically public. So we say public. And then our constructor always begins with the name of the class, which is Alice. So that's that. So that's our constructor. And then finally, let's just build one method real quick. We'll say public, and then we will say void, since I don't want this method to return anything. If it doesn't return anything, we say void. And we can call it my first method. And I'll just print something out to the screen. Hello world. So let's just go ahead and use this class. Let's test out my first method. How we can do that is that in our main method, we can declare Alice so we can access it. So we can create a new instance of Alice, say Alice, my first Alice. equals new Alice. So we created a new instance of this Alice class, and now we're going to call it to my first method. So say my first Alice dot my first method. There we go. And I'm going to click that green button, click run, and we should see hello world printed out to our terminal. Cool. So we got our first class up and running. All right, now we're starting 2.4.2. On the first step of this, it's asking us to do an input-output, write a new hello world program to prompt the user for their name and greet them by their name. So we need to create a new hello world class inside of our exercises folder. Well, we just did that, so we can do that again. We're in our sources, here's exercises. How we did it before was say new Java class, and we called it hello world. Press enter. So we just built our class. So add an import statement at the top of the file to include scanner. Seems easy enough. I'll copy this, stay in our hello world class, and paste it at the top like it asked. All right, on to C. Declare a variable of type scanner and call it input. Okay, so it says we need to create a variable, but I'm also seeing it that it needs to do something. We have to ask the user for their name and then capture that name and then print it back out. When we want a class to do something, this is very much indicating we need to create a method so this class can do this action that our exercise is asking of us. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to declare this variable and all this other code that it wants us to do within a new method. And just like before, how we do that is we say public. We ask ourselves, does it need to return anything? At this point, it doesn't. It's just printing out to the screen. So I'm going to say void. And then I'm going to call this method ask user for name. No parameters within those parentheses. And there we go, we've created that method. So now we can provide the action, or what the exercise wants our hello world class to do within this new method. So let's copy that code. It first wanted us to declare a new scanner. So I paste that. Then it says add a question to ask the user. So it says print out, hello, what is your name? So I'm going to copy that because I'm too lazy to type it. Then create a variable to store the user's response using the scanner's next line method. Okay, so we'll copy that again. So it's going to grab the next line or whatever the user types in and presses enter and then store it into this name variable. Okay, looks interesting enough. And then it says use concatenation to print the greeting. So they mean concatenation because they put this plus here. We're appending the name to this string, hello. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to copy this system out. We're going to paste it here. So what this is doing is it's creating that scanner object, asking the question, demanding that the user provide some input. And whatever that user provides as input is going to be stored in this name variable. So if I provide my name Kyle, it's going to store Kyle in this name variable. And then it's going to print out hello space name, which I said was Kyle. So I should see hello Kyle if I provided that. Cool. So on 5, it said that it wants us to right-click the arrow next to your class and run the program. Now, when it wants us to do that, it means that we need to go and find our main method and run the program from there. But in this class, when we want to run the ask for user's name method, we actually don't have a starting point for this. We don't use this in any main method. So that means that I need to create a main method here so we can run this class and make it do something. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say public static void main, just like last time, string args. There, okay, now I created a starting point. So just like we did before, we have to create a new instance of hello world, call it hello, equals new hello world. And now I can use hello to call to my ask user for name. So I say hello.ask user for name. Let's go ahead and run this. Cool, so now it's asking, hello, what is your name? I want to put Kyle, and it says, hello, Kyle. Very neat. Okay, so it looks like the next task we have is to write a program to calculate the area of a rectangle and print the answer to the console. You should prompt the user for the dimensions. So first things first, let's go ahead and just create a new program like it asked us to do by creating a new class. We'll say Java class area of rectangle. As always, we need to create that main method. So we'll say public static void main string args. There we go. So we started off our program because we got that green button right there. So let's go back to that question to ask, what data types should the dimension be? So what could our dimensions be? An area could be like 2, it could be 5, it could be 1,000, like 10,000, but also it can be small, very, very small as well. So we can have like 0.1, we can have 2.7659, whatever. We can have decimals in there. We can have big numbers, we have small numbers, we can have decimals. It can be different types of numbers like this. So what should that data type be? Well, what kind of data types do we have? We have strings, we have characters that we know about, we have integers, and we have doubles. Those are just some from our reading that we know about that we can save information into. So, like we've already talked about, our dimensions can be 2, 5, 1,000, 10,000, 0.1, etc. So these look like numbers to me. So we need to pick which kind of data type this is going to be. We knew that the values that we're going to be working with are all numerical. So we want to pick a data type that works with numeric values. Strings and characters work with text data. So strings and characters are not the best data type we want to do this with. So then we're left with integers and doubles. Integers, as we know by our reading, can only be whole numbers, 1, 5, 10. They can't be decimals. 0.5 cannot be an integer. We know we could have decimals inside of our output. Therefore, doubles looks like a very good option to choose because doubles can be decimals and those whole numbers. So in this case, I'm going to select double to hold our value. It says add an import statement to the top of your file using scanner. So I'm going to copy that from our hello world. We're going to add the scanner object to handle the user's input. So like we've been doing, we need to create a new method if we want our class to do something. So I'm going to say public, and I don't want it to return anything because we're just going to print out to the screen. So we're going to say void, and then I'm going to call it calculate area of rectangle. It doesn't take any parameters. And this is where we provide our code to calculate this area of the rectangle. So now we need to add a print line to prompt the user for the length of the rectangle. So how we did that before, we did a system.out.println, and I'm going to ask, what is the length of the rectangle? So then it says, define a variable to handle the user's response. We already know what that dimension and type is going to be because we already agreed that it's going to be a double. So I'm going to say double my rectangle's length. I'm going to say scanner. Oh, forgot to put the scanner variable up here. Scanner equals new scanner, and then system.in. There we go. We have scanner, and then we're going to say next double, because this is going to get the next double from our user. It's only going to look for doubles. So once a user enters a proper double, we're going to get my rectangle length back and save it into this variable. Awesome. What's the next step? Got to repeat the last two steps to store the rectangle's width. Seems easy enough. We'll say double again. Oop, not that. We need to ask the question first. What is the width of the rectangle? Perfect. Take that out. And I'm going to say double my rectangle width. We're going to say scanner.next double again. So now we're getting back that width and the length. So we have the two things we need to calculate an area of a rectangle. Use the length and the width values to calculate that rectangle's area. All right, I'll do that. Now remember, area equals width times length. We know our width is a double, and we know our length is a double. Therefore, our area has to be a double. So we say double area to create that variable. We say my rectangle length times my rectangle width. Now I said width times length, but you can also do length times width. Either one, they can be alternated to create the area. Awesome. We are calculating that area out. And now it says we need to print a statement using concatenation to communicate to the user what the area of the rectangle is. I will do that. So I'm going to say system.out.println your area. I'll take that space out. Your area is colon plus my rectangle, my area dot toString, because I want to concatenate a string. What this toString does is just converts your area to a string, so we can concatenate it with another string. Run the program to verify your code. All right, we have to run our code. Up here, just like before, we have to create an area of a rectangle. Area rectangle equals new rectangle, area of rectangle, dot calculate area of a rectangle. Awesome. And we run. What is the length of the rectangle? I'm going to say 5. What is the width of the rectangle? I'm going to say 10. 5 times 10 is 50, so our area should be 50. Cool. We are calculating that area properly. Hopping back. All right, write a program that asks for the number of miles they have driven and the amount of gas they've consumed in gallons, and then print their miles per gallon. Okay, let's do that. It says write a program, so that means we have to create another class. I'm gonna create that class, new Java class, and then we'll call it miles per gallon. It's a new class. Here we are. As always, we start off by creating that main method up here. All right, write a program that asks the user for number of miles they have driven and the amount of gas they have consumed in gallons. Okay, so we're going to create that method once more. I'll say public void, because again, we're not returning anything. Calculate miles per gallon. No parameters. First things first, as always, we need to ask the user for their input. Print line, how many miles have you driven? So that's going to ask the user. As always, you need to get that scanner in here. So now we have to ask that user for input. So we'll grab the scanner class. We'll create a new scanner. We always want to create our variables at the top. So I'm going to put scanner up here. So now we have to ask the user for how many miles they've driven. Again, I'm just going to use doubles because we can say I've driven 1.5 miles. So I wouldn't mind just keeping this as doubles just to give our users more options. So I'm going to say double miles driven equals scanner.next double. All right, and now we have to ask about how many gallons of gas have you consumed, or how many gallons of gas has your car consumed? Not you. You don't want to drink gas. Out.println, how many gallons of gas has your vehicle, car consumed? I don't know how to spell vehicle. Okay, so it's miles per gallon. That means calculate. Miles per gallon means miles divided by gallon. So that means we need to divide our miles variable by our gallons variable. So we say miles per gallon is equal to miles driven divided by gallons consumed. Miles per gallon is now being calculated, so we have to print that to the user. Your miles per gallon is plus miles per gallon dot toString. As always, we come up here to our main, we create a new instance of the miles per gallon. Miles per gallon dot calculate miles per gallon. Fantastic. We press that green button, we press run, and now we come down here. How many miles have you driven? I've driven 100 miles. How many gallons of gas has your car consumed? I'm going to say 10 gallons. It's not a good car for gas mileage. So it looks like our miles per gallon is 10 miles per gallon, which is not the best in today's standards, but that's just for an example. Cool, this step is all done. Let's move on. On to strings. The first sentence of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is below. Store the sentence in a string and then prompt the user for a term to search for within the string. So we've already created an Alice class that we haven't done much with. So we're going to go back up to there and just add this into that class. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go back up to here to Alice class. And I'm going to remove all of this down here. We don't need it. I'm going to keep this instance up here just because we know we're going to need it here soon to run our program. So I'm going to say public. I'm going to say Boolean because we need to create a method that returns true or false. And I'm going to call this search Alice quote. And then we need to provide a parameter, which is going to be the search term. There we go. And now it said we have to store this quote inside of a variable. So I'm going to call it the quote and then paste that string in there. So now we're saving this entire string that's provided to us inside of that the quote variable. So how we search through a string, we use the quote.contains method. And then in here we provide a string, which in this case is search term. So what this is going to do is that it's going to look through the entire the quote variable for that search term that's passed in through our parameter. If I provide Alice in here, it's going to search the entire thing for Alice. If it sees Alice, it returns true. So we actually need to catch what it returns. So I'm going to say Boolean. I'm going to call it just result. And this result's going to be at true or false. And then we return the result. So this is the first step. But remember, in our directions, it also says we needed it to be case insensitive. Case insensitive. So that means that the case should not matter. Therefore, if I pass in a lowercase Alice, it should still return true, even though Alice is uppercase. So how do we do that? How do we turn it into lowercase? What we can do is I'm going to create another string called the quote lowercase. And how we do it is we say the quote, and we use a string manipulation method called toLowercase. This is going to convert everything in the quote to lowercase. Now, what if we pass in uppercase Alice into the search term? If we're comparing it to the lowercase now, Alice would be lowercase even though I pass in the uppercase. So the case still matters here in this example. So what we need to do is we also need to convert the search term to lowercase. We say string search term lowercase equals search term dot toLowercase. And now we use our lowercase forms with that contains method to see if it has it in there. So we replace the quote with the quote lowercase, and we replace search term with the search term lowercase. So now everything is in lowercase when we're looking to see if the string contains the search term. So our result will be more accurate. So there we go. We've created this method. Let's go ahead and test it out real quick. We'll call myFirstAlice dot search Alice quote, and I'm going to put in Alice, but I'm going to spell it weird. A-L-I-C-E with a capital A, lowercase l, capital I, capital C, and then a lowercase e. Definitely nothing we truly see in this quote. I'm going to capture that result. My returned result is the variable I'm going to call it. And I'm going to system out.println. The result is colon. Then we append my returned result toString. Run this. Oop. What I didn't do is I didn't press this and then press run. There we go. And the result is true. Now if I type in Bob here, I press go, it turns false because Bob is not mentioned in the quote. We have our first part of this task done. So now we need to prompt the user for a term to search for within the string. So we just have to prompt the user again to get something. So what I'm going to do is create another method in here to prompt the user for a search term. So I'm going to say public string because I'm going to return the string, whatever the user inputs. And I'm going to call this get users input. Or you know what, get users search term. That sounds better. I like that. As always, we create that scanner. Oh, we have to get a search term from the user, which the search term is a string. So I'm going to say string search term equals scanner dot next line, just like how we got our name in the first example, hello world. We need to get a string. So we say next line. Then one thing I haven't been doing, and I apologize, we need to close the scanner when we're done with it. So we say scanner.close, and then we return the search term. Now we just created a method to get the user's search term in here. So we need to replace this hard-coded. Hard-coded means typing something directly into there, such as a variable. So Bob in quotes would be hard-coded. If I put a 1 in here, that's hard-coded. We need to remove that and replace it with a variable, particularly whatever's returned from this get users search term method. So I'm going to create a new string up here called search term. I'm going to call myFirstAlice dot get users search term. There we go. We are now getting the user's search term, whatever they input, and passing it into the search the Alice quote method to get that result back, and then we print what the result is. So let's go ahead and run it. So I'm going to type in Alice weirdly again, and the result is true. Cool. Let's run it one more time. This time I'm going to type in Tony. Press enter. Result is false. I think that is everything it asked for in this one. All right, this one's going to be fun. So assume the user enters a word that is in the sentence. That is in the sentence means our method has to come back true, print out its index within the string length, then remove the word from the string and print the sentence again to confirm the code. Okay, so let's take this step by step. We already have a method that says, does the word exist in the sentence? The next thing we have to do is print out the index within the string and its length. So we're going to go back here and we're going to create another method. In this one, we're going to call public void get words index. We're going to do exactly how we had in the search Alice one. We're going to take in that parameter, the search term. We're going to take in that quote, get all to lowercase. And then now what we're going to do is that we are going to get the word's index. So we have to find the index of the search term somewhere in the string. So an index is an integer or an int. We'll call it the index. And we'll set it equal to the index of wherever the search term is in the quote. So the quote lowercase, because we need to compare it to that lowercase form. And then we're going to use index of. And then we're going to say search term lowercase. So here now we have the index. So we can print that out. The index is plus the index. And the length, GTH, is search term dot lowercase dot length. I'm going to take out that colon. And now I'm going to come up here and utilize this, get words index. So it said only if the search term is in the sentence should we try to find its index. So I'm going to say if my returned result equals true, then I'm going to run get words index. So I'm going to say my first Alice dot get words index and then the search term. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to type in Alice. The index is 0 and the length is 5 because our Alice is 5 and Alice starts at the 0th index of our string. So there we go, we have this going. Let's go to the next part. It says remove the word from the string and print the sentence again to confirm your code. So what this wants to do is remove whatever we type in there, if it's in the sentence, from the sentence. So I'm going to call this method that we're going to create public void remove word from quote string search term. As always, we take in what we need here below, and we have to remove the search term from the quote. Okay, so how we remove things from a string is that we have to use the substring method. So what substring asks for is, if we look at the quote lowercase dot substring, it needs a beginning index and an ending index. So we need to tell this thing where to begin and where to end. In just this part of the sentence, I'm going to just copy this as an example. If I wanted to remove beginning, what we need to do is do two substrings to say, hey, grab Alice was and to get very tired, and then tie those strings together. That means we need the starting point here and the ending point here, the starting point here and the ending point here. So that means we need two starting points and two ending points. So I'm going to create variables for that. Okay, so starting point 1, this is asking where do we start creating our first part of the sentence that we want to save. The starting point we're always going to start at is 0, because we always want to start at the beginning of the sentence. The ending point 1, and this is where it gets a little tricky, is exactly the starting index of where the word you want to remove is. As we know from getWordsIndex, that was from the index of method. So what we need to do here is plug in the index of with the search term lowercase there. So this will return us where we want to start editing our string at. Starting point 2 is also a little interesting. It is whatever the index of that area in the string plus the length of the word you want to remove. And we already know how to get the length of something when we say search term dot lowercase dot length. We're telling it to restart creating this string after the word we want to remove, which again is beginning. Ending point 2 is whatever's after that starting point. So actually ending point 2 is something we do not need to do. An ending point in a substring method is actually optional. If we don't have a specific ending point that we need to provide, we can actually just keep it out of there. So we won't even need that. So let's go ahead and create our new string, our new quote. What we're going to do is we're going to take the original quote, not the lowercase form, and say substring, beginning index, which is starting point 1, and I'm going to say ending point 1 here, append the quote.substring, and again, starting point 2. We don't need that ending point because it's optional. And now it's asking us to print it out to the screen. Let's say the new quote is. So let's go ahead and put this into our main method, myfirstalice.remove word from quote, type in search term, and then run it. Like we said, we want to remove beginning, so I'm going to put beginning. And there we go. We removed beginning from our new quote. This one was a little bit trickier. It really gets us more into depth with strings. Feel free to go back through here and review what I typed. Also, ask me questions in class too if you want me to expand more on this. And it looks like we are to the end of our exercise. So great job. We have completed this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.